Everybody, welcome back to Rust Admin Academy, where I teach you guys the very best tips and tricks to owning and operating a successful Rust server. On this channel, I do a lot of plugin reviews and tutorials to hopefully show you some of the different things that you can do on your server to make life just a little bit more fun for your players, or maybe a little bit easier for your admins or moderators. So if you're brand new to the channel, consider subscribing so that you stay up to date on everything that we're working on. All right, let's get into today's video. So I'm going to start out by saying that I've done you guys an injustice by not telling you about this plugin yet. The recently rebuilt version of Rust Kits has been out for about 3 weeks now, I want to say. And I should have gotten on this right away, but I just had so many other videos that I had to get done first. But fortunately, here we are. Now I can finally show you about the new updated version of Rust Kits. So first and foremost, one of the biggest changes that has come into Rust Kits is the fact that it's all now GUI based, or GUI based if you want to be that guy, which basically means that we no longer have to remember a bunch of chat commands in order to start creating kits. We can do it all with a very simple and very well laid out GUI that makes creating kits so much easier than it was before. Not that it was difficult before, but now we can just do it with a bunch of mouse clicks. But on top of the GUI aspect of things, Kits GUI has integrated a whole bunch of other features that actually makes Rust Kits even better than it was before. One of the new features that was just recently added to it was the ability to put cooldowns on kits after a wipe. So as soon as Rust Kits recognizes that there's a new map save or you've gone through a wipe period, Rust Kits now recognizes that you've gone through a wipe period and starts a countdown timer on whatever kits you specify in the configuration file. And the timer is also defined by you in the configuration file. So if you have certain kits that you've built on your server and you don't want players to have access to it, say for the first 24 or 48 hours, you can now set that up. You can also have it so that they do have access to other kits. The configurability of that feature makes it very powerful and very useful and very handy for people that use a lot of kits on their servers that maybe don't necessarily want everyone to have access to them immediately right after a wipe. We can also set it up so that our players actually have to buy our kits. We can either use server rewards, economics, or we can use scrap. And default right out of the box, it is set to scrap. But if you haven't defined any of your kits to cost anything, then that doesn't matter. I'm just letting you know that by default, the economic system for Rust Kits is set to scrap. I'm going to show you all of these features once we get into the configuration file. So don't worry, we'll get into all of that. You also have the ability now to walk up to any NPC in game. And I've tested this, which I was a little bit surprised to find out that you can actually give kits to the scientists that are hanging out at the outpost. I haven't actually gone and tested to see if you can do the same thing with the scientists at the oil rig, but I'm going to actually do this on video so that we all know if we can assign kits to the NPCs on the oil rigs. Another cool feature about this version of Rust Kits is the GUI that we use to claim, as well as creating new kits for our server, is all customizable. So we can change the color so that it reflects the color scheme of our server, or if you just feel like modifying it so that it just looks different from everybody else's. Fully configurable inside the config file. Another really cool feature about this new updated version of Rust Kits is the fact that we can have different levels of auto kits that will be assigned to different people based on their permissions levels. I'll show you what I mean about the auto kits once we get into the configuration file, so don't worry, hang on to that. Now, one of the biggest concerns that a lot of people are going to have when they're upgrading from an old version of Rust Kits to this new version of Rust Kits is, do I have to recreate all of the kits that I currently have on my server, or will the plugin automatically grab that information and transfer it over? Because the data file changes, the layout of the data that's inside the data file actually changes. So to answer your question, yes, there is a command that we can perform in console that will convert our old kits data file into the new kits data file, and that's all you have to do. Once it's done, and you can delete your old version and you're off to the races. If you happen to be upgrading from an old version of Rust Kits to a new version, you can also do the exact same thing for your player information. So if you want to transfer over how many people have claimed however many kits, or their cooldowns or their max limits, you can also convert that information over into this newest version as well. Pro tip there, I would suggest if you're going to do this, probably don't do it during a wipe. I mean, you can, and Kits GUI has gone to extreme lengths to make it so that we can actually do this. For simplicity reasons, I would say just do this during an actual wipe day. And one last thing before we actually get into playing with this new version, I've seen a lot of people are struggling with the ability to actually create a kit that is actually a base. When you click on claim kit, it actually places a base for you. And I do know that there was a bunch of compatibility issues between copy paste and the old version of Rust Kits, but just so that you know, this new version is all working together just fine. I've tested it before I started recording this video. I'm going to show you how to actually do that, but just know that it does actually work. Before we get into actually using Rust Kits, if you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notification bells so that you get notified as soon as I upload a new video. I put out a brand new video every Friday at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And don't forget to check out my entire catalog of videos. Chances are pretty good that if you came here to ask a question, I've already answered it for you. Make sure you check out my other videos. All right, so before we actually go in game so that I can show you what's going on in game, I want to show you everything that there is to know about the configuration file. Not very much, it's not going to take us very long, but it is important that you understand what's happening. So just like before, all of your actual kit information isn't housed inside your configuration file. So the configuration file is basically telling the plugin how to perform on your server, whereas the actual kit information is housed in a completely different location inside your data folder. I'll show you where that information is, so just bear with me for just a minute. Like I said before, there is a currency that we can use on kits. By default, it's set to scrap, and you would change that right here. If you wanted to change it to economics or server rewards, you would just simply change this right here. Do you want to maintain a log of the kits that are given out? Yes or no? By default, this is set to false. Wipe player data when the server is wiped. By default, this is set to false, and I think this should be set to true. So what this does is it basically automates the process whenever the plugin recognizes that there's been a new map save, which usually indicates that there's been a wipe. No, not usually, 100% of the time. Then it will automatically wipe your player data information. So any claims, any cooldowns, any max uses, it's going to delete all of that information automatically for you. So basically, gone are the days of actually going through your data folder and manually deleting these files whenever you're wiping, providing, of course, you're not using an automation system, which of course I have taught you how to do in the past. Do you want to use the Kits GUI? Well, yes, of course we do. So we'll leave that default at true. Allow players to toggle auto kits on spawn. By default, this is set to false. If you change this to true, basically what it does is it makes it so that your players can decide if they're going to get an auto kit. They can't decide which auto kit they're going to get, but they can decide if they don't want to have an auto kit, they'll just spawn like normal with a rock and a torch. But by default, this is set to false. So by default, they wouldn't have that ability. Show kits with permissions assigned to players without the permissions. So basically what that does is if you have kits on your server that have permissions assigned to them, what you're doing here is deciding if people that don't have those permissions granted to them can even see that those kits exist. So where is this handy? Not necessarily for VIPs. This isn't really... A lot of people think that they should hide their VIP kits from the regular players. I don't really agree with that. I think regular players should see what they would get if they were VIPs. So don't use this feature to hide your VIP kits. That's just my suggestion. Let's say you do have a bunch of kits. Let's say admins or moderators have kits that are built that they want to be able to give to other players, or for whatever reason you have kits that you definitely don't want other players to be able to see. Then you would make use of this feature, which would basically hide the visibility of the kit that has the permission assigned to it from anyone that doesn't have that permission. So in the example that I'm talking about, only your admins or moderators would be able to see that these kits even exist. Next up is the auto kits ordered by priority. So like I was telling you earlier, you can change it so that different players with different permission levels have different auto kits. So I know in my intro I only used 2 different examples. I'm going to add a 3rd example to this so that you can really understand what it is that I'm trying to say. Let's say you wanted to have your admins or moderators to automatically spawn with a certain kit. And let's just say, for example, we had that kit built and it was called admin and it had a permission assigned to it, and that permission was only granted to admins or moderators. So it would look like this. So then next up, we would want to have a VIP kit that only people that have the VIP permission would automatically spawn with. And then of course we would have our regular auto kit. You can name this whatever you want. Just know that the plugin works in the order that you're actually displaying them in on this list. So it's going to check if somebody dies, they're going to check to see if they have the admin or moderator permission. If they don't, it's going to go to the next kit below that. If they don't have a VIP kit permission assigned to them, it's going to go to the next one down below that. In this case, I would make it so that there was no permission at all assigned to the auto kit. Therefore, it would then assign that auto kit to that player. I hope this is all making sense to you, because this is an incredibly powerful feature. It's something that people have been asking for a very long time. The ability to have different auto kits based on permissions. If I'm not absolutely 100% clear on what's going on here, make sure you leave me a comment in the comment section down below so that I can answer your questions to clear up any misconceptions about this. I want you guys to be able to claim these kits, the kits that are on cooldowns. After the plugin recognizes that there's a new map save, it can start these countdown timers for the time that's listed next to each one of them. So for example, if I wanted to make it so that admins or moderators couldn't claim a kit for 24 hours after a wipe, I would put the admin kit in there and I would make the countdown timer for 86,400 seconds, which is 24 hours. if I wanted to limit the ability of my VIPs to claim their kits, or in this case 12 hours, then I would make it look like this. So anybody that has access to the VIP kit cannot claim that kit for the first 12 hours after a brand new wipe. The next section there is basically dealing with the parameters involved when claiming a base that we've set up as a kit that is claimable. I'm assuming the reason that KillU put these parameters in there is because they supersede whatever parameters we've defined in copy paste, because copy paste does actually have these same or very similar parameters built into copy paste. I'm also wondering if, because it's set up this way, are we able to actually add different parameters that we want the Kits GUI to supersede copy paste on? Because in theory, we could just add another line right here and add in another parameter. So that I'm not 100% sure on. I'll have to test that, not while I'm recording, obviously. So the next section there is dealing with the color customization of the actual GUI itself. You can go through and play with these colors and decide what actually works on your server, but just know that you will be using hex codes to change the colors, and you have the ability of changing the alpha of each one of the color sections that you're changing the colors for. Alpha is also known as transparency. So because this new version of Rust Kits is so graphically inclined, KillU has actually included a couple of different default images that will appear on your Kits GUI, providing of course that you aren't adding images for each one of your kits. I am going to show you how to add images, but if you don't, there will be a default image that will show up. That's what is defined right here in this section right here. Default kit image URL. So it's obviously based on a web address. And then there's the magnifying glass image that can also be changed to, should you decide that you wanted to change it. You'll see where all of these images come into play once we actually go in game. Of course, we can make it so that kits are only claimable from certain NPCs. That of course is going to require the use of human NPCs, but you can define all of that information right here. This is where the NPC ID would go. And then this is the list of the kits that this NPC is actually able to give you or sell to you. So that basically sums up the configuration file. I'm also going to show you the data file before we actually go in game. So let's have a look for that right now. Let's go into our Oxide folder, go into our data folder. If you're using an older version of kits, you'll know that the information is stored a little bit differently now as compared to what it was before. Previously, all of the kits that we built as the moderator or owner of our servers would all be held in a file called kits.json, and all of the player information, so which player claimed which kits, would all be held in a file called kits_data.json. So if you're converting from a previous version of Rust Kits and you want to use the new version of Rust Kits, there's a couple of commands that you actually have to use. So if you want to convert all of your old data into new usable data, you go into your console and you type kits.convert old data. The convert old data is all one word, all lowercase, and then just hit enter. It'll automatically go grab all that information. It'll reconfigure it into the new version that is needed and place it where it needs to go. If you're doing this conversion mid-wipe and you also want to bring over your player data information, you would use the command kits.convert old player data, all lowercase, no spaces. That of course will grab all of the information from your kits_data.json and convert it into the new player data JSON, which is now usable by the new version of Rust Kits. So if after you've done both of those convert files, the information you're now going to be looking for as far as Rust Kits is concerned is inside this folder right here. So kind of nice that now we have both files in their own folder. It makes it way easier to find things. When you have hundreds of plugins, it's nice that this information is a little bit easier to access. So obviously the kits_data.json is where all of the kit information is. Player_data.json is where all the player information is. This is all fairly self-explanatory stuff, but I just want you to understand where all of the different information is and what it means. So this is the file right here that if we told the plugin to automatically delete that information on a new map save, this is the file that would get deleted, not this file right here. This file right here is where you've done all of your work. So all of the kits that you've built for your server, all of that information is going to reside in this file right here. We can go in there and you can actually see it. So I've built a couple of test kits, just one that's called my name. That's all of the different items that are in this kit. This information right here should look familiar to you if you've used any previous version of Rust Kit. It looks very similar. And the other test kit that I've pre-built before this video started recording is the one where you can claim a base. Don't worry, I'm going to show you how to do that exact process so that it works for you as well. So if you've set up your Rust Kits configuration file to delete the data file anytime it sees a new map save, you basically have no reason to ever go into any one of these files, unless of course you're changing the quantity of an item. Maybe you made a mistake and you'd like to go back and change it, but you can still do all of that stuff from in-game. So there really is no reason to go into any of these files. Don't feel like you can't. It's just not a file that you're going to need to have access to on a regular basis. All right, so if you've decided that you want to put Rust Kits on your server, grab the link from the video description down below. A couple of things that you need to know before you actually install the plugin It does depend on ImageLibrary. So if you don't already have ImageLibrary installed onto your server, you want to make sure that you have that done first. And if you do want to have the ability on your server of players being able to claim an actual base from your Rust Kits GUI, you want to make sure that you also have the plugin called copy paste installed on your server too. All of that information is on the Rust Kits documentation page on the uMod website, but just so that it said you need to have ImageLibrary in order for it to work properly. And if you want to have the ability of using claimable bases, you need to have copy paste. All right, so what's the first thing we need to do once we get in game? Well, obviously we're going to check for any permissions that we might need to have in order to actually work with this plugin. So I'm just using PermissionManager here, and I'm going to hop into the kits. So by default, without making any changes to the permissions of this plugin, I was able to have access to all of the admin commands for Rust Kits. So that means that anybody that has auth level 1 or auth level 2 automatically has these permissions granted to them. Or I should say definitely auth level 2, because that's what I have on this server. I don't know for sure about auth level 1. I'm going to assume yes, but it could be something that you want to look into if you have moderators on your server. If you have a group of people that you want to have access to creating kits that aren't auth level 1 or auth level 2, you of course could grant them this permission right here. But by default, like I said, I have access to all of the admin commands that I need to have. So I'm just going to leave that at revoke, and I'll show you guys exactly what's going on in the GUI. All right, now that we've dealt with all the permissions, and in this case, we didn't need to have any permissions granted, but whatever, let's go in game and we can actually do /kit, and it's going to bring up the Rust Kits GUI for the very first time that you've seen it on this video. And as you can see, I've previously made some kits. Don't worry about that. I'm going to show you exactly how to create your own kits. The very first thing that we want to do when we're creating new kits is actually have the items that we want to have a part of that kit already in our inventory. So just for kicks today, let's build us a bunny suit, and also let's give us an Easter egg basket. All right, so we're going to actually wear our bunny suit. Oh, hey, look, what's this new head? Oh, I see. Let's do that instead. And we want to have our basket in our hand. So there we go. Let's give ourselves some boots, and we might as well do some tack gloves in there too, because you know, what kind of bunny doesn't have boots and tack gloves? So there we go. So this is the kit that we're going to create. So we go /kit, and if you have the permission granted to you, or you have auth level 1 or auth level 2, I'm assuming both work, you will have this green button right here called create new. This is where all the fun begins. So we can simply click on each one of these boxes, and we can write whatever applicable information is required for each one, and we can leave blank the boxes that aren't required. Now, something important to recognize here is while you're inside this GUI, your buttons on your keyboard still function the same way as they do normally. So basically, the game doesn't recognize that you have a GUI on your screen. So everything that you have programmed in keys, it's actually going to do in game. So for example, I'm in the GUI right now. You can see my cursor clicking right there. And if I do ASDW and stuff like that, you can see my character is moving around. So the same thing is applicable if you have any shortcuts or hotkeys programmed into your keyboard. So if you're an admin and you have tricky things programmed as hotkeys on your keyboard, you want to be careful which buttons you're pressing while you're inside of a GUI, or where you're located while you're pressing those buttons. Just as an example, so I have a hotkey set up so that it will automatically spawn a rocket every time I press the button. So like literally I can just spam one of my hotkeys and it will spawn these rockets every time I hit the button. So if I happen to hit that button while I'm inside the GUI, it's still going to do the same thing. So if I'm in here creating a new kit and I accidentally hit one of these buttons, it's going to perform that action. I hope I've made myself perfectly clear here. I have put out a request on several occasions to many developers that I trust, and I know that they know what they're doing, and even they can't figure out a way to disable our keyboard in the game so that it only works on the GUI. Hopefully somebody can come up with a fix for this, because there are a lot of applications where this could go very bad very quickly. Let's say you even just have end kill bound to a key and you accidentally press that key while you're building a kit and you're inside somebody else's base or your own base. Of course, it's going to end kill whatever it is that you're looking at, as well as putting that letter inside the box that you're trying to enter it into. Hope this is all making sense. It sounds like a bunch of gobbledygook in my head right now, but I'm hoping that I'm getting my point across. All right, so let's name our bunny kit. So we're going to call this bunny. And as soon as I hit the B, you're going to see that my backpack is going to open up. I'm going to keep typing anyways. So as a description, we can put in whatever we want. Let's just do bunny suit. And we can of course change the icon URL. So I just went and grabbed an image of the bunny suit itself. We're not going to assign any permissions to this. We're not going to require any auth levels. We're not going to hide it. We're not going to have any max use. Actually, let's put in a max use. Let's say we can only use this kit 3 times in a white period. And we're going to put a cooldown on here of 60 seconds. Of course, you might want to change that to a little bit longer so that your players can't actually claim this kit every 60 seconds, but just for testing purposes. Now, if you wanted to assign a cost This is where you would do this right here. So by default, the economy is set up to scrap. So let's say we wanted the player to actually pay 10 scrap in order to claim this kit. Quite obviously, we put in a 10 there, and whatever value you want it to be, you can put that in this location. If you want it to cost 100 scrap to claim this kit, so be it. You put 100 there. If you leave this box blank, of course, it's not going to cost that player anything, and only the other two parameters are going to matter: the maximum uses and then the cooldowns. File name, let's not worry about that. We're going to do that one next. Don't worry about it. Now we need to actually get the items that we want to be a part of this kit, and quite simply, because we went and grabbed all those items already and we put them where we wanted them to be, all we have to do is click on this green button right here that says copy from inventory, and it's going to grab those items from our inventory and actually put them inside the kit exactly in the same place where we have them on our inventory. And don't worry, these images will actually show up. It's just waiting for ImageLibrary to finish processing all of the images. And of course, if you're satisfied with that, on the left hand side there's the save kit button. You can go ahead and just click on that. So as you can see there, it's already starting to generate those images for me, which is perfect. So if we go back to the main page of Rust kits, you'll see that now my new kit has shown up there. If I click anywhere up here, it's going to take me into the information page. If we click on the green redeem button, obviously it's going to redeem that kit for us. We're not going to do that right now. I actually want to show you what happens when you click on the image. Of course, it takes you into the information page that we predetermined while we were setting this kit up. So it tells you everything that you need to know about this kit before you actually redeem it. It shows you in image form what you're actually going to receive. So I'm just going to dump these items off my body, and I'll go back into the Kit GUI, and I want to click on this green redeem button right here. So as you can see in chat, it says you have received the kit bunny. Actually, you can barely see that because I've got my little graphic in the way, but as you can see, I'm now wearing the bunny suit, and I have my cool attack gloves as well as my boots as well as my bunny basket. If we go back into the Kits GUI, it'll actually show us what our cooldown is currently right now as soon as we open the GUI. If we click on the image itself, it shows us that we had a max of 3 uses. I have now used 1, and I currently have a 29-second cooldown timer before I can claim this kit again. All right, so the next thing that I want to show you is how you can actually make it so that a base is actually claimable inside the Kits GUI. So of course, in order to make this work, you actually have to have bases already pre-built, and they need to be saved inside your copy-paste data folder. If you've never done any of this stuff before, make sure you check out this video right now. It goes through absolutely everything you need to know about building bases and then copying them so they can be later used in your server. So I've just pre-built this basic 2x2 right here, and we're going to use, this is a copy paste command. This isn't a kits command. So we're going to copy this base as base 2, just like that, no space in between the letters and the numbers. All right, so we've copied this base as base 2. Now we can go back into our Kits GUI. We're going to create another new kit, and we can do a lot of the same things. So we can give this guy a name. Let's call it starter base, and we're not going to do a description. We don't need an image for this. It's just going to utilize the default image that was also predefined in the configuration file. We're not going to associate any permissions to this. I will show you what it looks like when you do assign a permission to a kit. Don't worry, we'll get into that in just a second. Max uses, we want to set this to 1. It only makes sense that a player can claim this base 1 time. And because of that, we don't need a cooldown. If we wanted to make this actually cost them something, we could of course put in a cost there. Again, by default, this is set to scrap. We can change it to either economics or server rewards if we decided to. Now, this is the section that's important here. We need to put the actual file name exactly as it was when we copied it. So remember, when I did copy, I did base 2, no spaces, all lowercase. It needs to be exactly the same way. If you want to see how the file names are actually written, you go into your data folder, and then we go into copy paste, and then anything that you've copied inside your server is going to reside in this file in the form of a .json. So as you can see, before I started recording, I did base 1, and while I was recording this today, I did base 2. So it needs to be exactly like this: base 2, no spaces, all lowercase. I understand it seems like I'm putting a lot of emphasis on what may seem like pretty small details. These are all questions that I get on a almost daily basis, and the developers of these plugins, I'm sure, get way more questions than I do. So if I can get this stuff out of the way now, and because you've watched my video, you now look like a Rust kits as well as a copy paste guru if you've watched that video as well. All right, so because we don't have any actual items in this kit, actually, I'm kind of curious to see what happens if I add items to this kit. So I'm just going to copy what I have from my inventory and see what happens. It did grab those items from my inventory. It also left that file name in there, which is cool and good to know. So let's save this kit. Okay, so we can't call it that. Let's call it something else. Let's do builder. All right, so let's just call this test build. All right, good enough. All right, let's save the kit. We've saved the kit as test build. Cool. Let's go back and see what's up. So we currently have the kit right there called test build. Cool. And it is actually telling us that if we redeem this kit, we're going to get these items out of our inventory as well as this base right here. So to test that out, let's actually get rid of all of the items that are on my inventory. Okay, so I've dropped all that on the ground. Let's go over here and claim this kit. So /kit, and let's actually redeem this kit right here. And as you can see, it pasted the base right in front of me, but did it actually give me those inventory items? It did not give me those inventory items. So that is interesting. So interesting that the plugin allows us to actually copy those inventory items, even though it makes sense that if we put a file name in there, it kind of ignores all of that information. So it all kind of lines up. It's just interesting that we can actually click on that button. It says copy items from my inventory as well as have a file name, whatever. Small detail. Of course, I'm going to find it. And go back over here and pick up my bunny suit again. All right. So as you can see, this is the original base that I started out with. And that is now the base that I have claimed from the kit, which in this case cost me nothing. It's a great way to get your players started out with a little base, nothing fancy, just something for them to store their loot in until they actually get up and running. I've found that maybe on a lower population server, this is a really great way to make it so that players want to stay on your server if they feel safe, they feel like they have somewhere to store their loot, that they're not just going to die and lose all of their work right off the bat before they even get a base on the ground. So I really like this feature of Rust kits. I'm glad they did it, and I've used it at varying times throughout my Rust career, but I do know that there was a period in time where it didn't work. I don't know if it was a copy paste issue or a kits issue, but either way, they weren't jiving together properly, and one of them wasn't working the way that they should have. So if you're ever finding that kits isn't actually spawning a base, even though you've previously had it set up to do it, make sure you check that you're using the most recent version of Rust kits as well as the most recent version of copy paste. So I did also say that I would show you how to build a kit with permissions. So I've just put a couple of items into my inventory so that we can create a new kit here real quick. We're going to call this kit, we'll call it gear set. And we're not going to use an image, but we are going to assign a permission that's required in order to claim this kit. So let's assign the permission kits.vip. Oh, that's important to note too. Anytime you're assigning a permission to a kit, it has to be prefixed with kits dot and then whatever permission name you want to use. So in this case, we're doing kits.vip. We of course are going to copy these items from the inventory, and then of course we can click on save kit. So now as you can see there, I have this VIP kit showing up there. So I myself don't have the kits.vip permission assigned to me at all. So if we go back into the configuration file for Rust kits and we go into the auto kit section, I've replaced those first two lines with gear set and bull. So bull, I do actually have the permission for, so I can actually access that kit. I don't have the permission for gear set. So therefore, if I were to kill myself in game right now and respawn, it's going to check and see, do I have the permission for gear set? No. Okay, let's go into the next one and see if he has the permission for that one. And because I do, it would assign me that auto kit. I would wake up and we would be on our way. So just remember, when you're setting up this list, you can have as many kits in here as you want. Just make sure you put them in the priority that you want it to check first. So basically your highest level priority, you want it to check that first. Let's say we set it up like this and we had a kit that was actually called default auto kit. So all of your VIPs, all of your admins, everybody that has any permissions at all on your server would all get ignored for their auto kit because they would be assigned the first one first. You would want to have this line at the very bottom, the one that has the least amount of permissions assigned to it, so that your highest level priority player gets assigned their kit before they end up at the lowest priority one. Again, I hope that's making sense. All right, so I realized that I had to go back in and actually record a section of video here. I told you that I'd show you that we can actually give kits to NPCs at the outpost, but that I hadn't tried it yet at the oil rig. So here we go. Here we find an NPC. All right, so let's get up behind this NPC here and let's just run the command. So it's /kit give NPC and then the kit name. And of course he moved. So let me do that again right here. There we go. So sure enough, I was able to give that kit to this NPC. So yes, it does work at the outpost, and yes, it does work on the NPCs at the oil rigs as well. Just do another one here. Sure enough, I'm not really sure what real life application we would use this in, but the feature is there and we can do it. It does work. All right, so that basically sums up the new version of Rust kits, which comes with a brand spanking new GUI, which is absolutely great. I think Kits GUI has done a really great job on this plugin. It's working very well. I haven't found any glitches with it just yet. I'm sure if I mess around with it enough, I will find problems, but I'll be sure to let him know if I do come across anything. Of course, as always, if you guys have any questions whatsoever about Rust kits or even copy paste, because I did kind of touch on that a little bit too, leave them in the comment section down below. Or if that doesn't work for you, of course, you can join my Discord. Discord at discord.srtbull.com. We got to be getting super close to 3,000 members in that Discord. And if you join the Discord too, we are just that much closer to that 3,000 members that I'm looking for. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, you know what to do. Leave me a great big thumbs up. It super helps me out a lot. Everyone knows in this day and age, we have to make the YouTube algorithm happy. Otherwise, we fall into the deep, dark depths of despair, and nobody wants that. So make sure you leave me that thumbs up. All right, thanks for watching. Remember, I put out a brand new video every Friday at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So until next Friday, I hope you guys are staying safe and taking care of each other. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.